The first day I took Ritalin, I cried. I felt like Bradley Cooper in Limitless. I felt like I'd just put glasses on my brain. I was seeing things fuzzy my whole life.
If someone says to you, describe what it's like in your head on a typical day, what does that look like?
Beautiful chaos. It's creativity, it's ideas. We're really magnetic, sparkly people.
It's not a lack of focus, it's a lack of being able to direct your focus.
I was always smart. I just couldn't articulate it in time. When I was 13, I was diagnosed with depression, anxiety, and put on antidepressants.
Yep.
Now I know that they were symptoms of untreated ADHD. Being on top of like the washing or the lunchbox or replying to the in-party invites. I'm always getting that stuff wrong.
You find the easy stuff quite hard and the hard stuff quite easy.
When things fall to pieces and they go to shit and you've got nothing around you, it has to make room for the right things to come into your life. I'll look back and be like, that was so worth blowing up my life, because that's how it felt, yeah.
All right, Selena, take 2. The first one was a malfunction of technology. Let's try that again. It's great to have you here. This is the first episode I've done on the topic of ADHD, and I'm quite excited for it because it's not a topic I know as much about as some of the other sort of things I've discussed on here.
Well, you've come to the right place.
And you've got a very sort of bold and unfiltered way of communicating your life experiences with ADHD and related things. So I think it's a good way for people to see it through your eyes and your lived experiences. I wanted to actually start with a TV show because in my research for this episode, I came across again the TVNZ documentary on ADHD, and about 4 or 5 minutes into it, realized you're actually on it. So it was quite
like,
fitting. And I was like, oh,
I got the right person then.
Yeah. So that's awesome. And I think the way that show was communicated, it brought across different angles and perspectives, all with quite common, lived experiences of ADHD, but from your own perspectives, which I thought was really good.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I wanted to start with the TV show and how that came about and how that was for you, because I can imagine going on national TV and talking about something like that isn't the easiest.
Yeah, that part was actually fine. I was just thrilled and just gobsmacked that I was even approached to be on it. So how I got approached was I just had my Instagram page at the time and it was very small, and I think I had maybe just started doing like reels and like speaking content. Like that's so scary, when you go from like static, like kind of dipping my toes in, getting more confident about what I'm doing. And I just got a message in the DMs, and it really could have gone either way because it was just from a random account, but it sounded legit, and they sent me an email and it was legit. And then that kind of led to like a casting call or Zoom, I guess, to just kind of interact and see what you're like. And, I'm just really good at getting on like the banter, and made it through. Then they were kind of like, we'll contact you. I don't know how film works, but basically it was a long way off, right?
Yep.
So didn't hear anything about it. Then life happens, and I actually, because I'm separated, have been for over a year now. But back then, it'd been the kind of final conversation on the Sunday night. Next day, I'm in Wickles, like I'm going to buy a book, I'm going to like new life, new me. And I just got this random number started calling me. And if you're ADHD, you're like, I don't pick up a random number. Like, but something told me like, no, like, look at me go, I'm about to buy a book and I should really pick this number up. And I'm glad I did, because it was the producer. And she was like, remember me? So we're going to film and we're going to start with you. And I know it's last minute, but could we come on Wednesday, which was in 2 days' time, and come and film you know, just like you and your family dynamics, like getting ready in the morning and just you and your natural environment. And like this bombshell of my life had just happened the night before.
I was gonna say they probably weren't aware your family dynamic had just drastically changed.
No one had. It had been less than 24 hours.
Mm.
So, but being who I am, I just like jump at anything. And I'm like, yeah, of course. Come to the family home. Come see the family. Yeah, they were there on Wednesday, and I actually didn't want to tell them, not because I was ashamed or I wanted to lie, but I just thought like I'm so not ready to like open that topic because I didn't want to their kind of like ears to prick up and be like, oh, this would be a good topic. Like, let's delve into this. So I just was like, I'm living it right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, 2 days later they were there and filming for like half a day, and I was the first cab off the rank, and I just had like the most amazing time because I've never been on TV, and just it was just fun. It was fun. It was scary,
Yeah.
but it was fun.
What age were you when you got diagnosed?
I was, I think, 34. Yeah, 34.
Okay. And the TV show would have been a few years after that?
Yeah, it was. It would have been maybe 2 years after. Yeah.
And what led you at that age? I'm assuming it was probably something you thought felt off or not right for most of your life or since a childhood.
Yeah.
What led you, I guess, in the weeks or months or years, I guess, even leading up to going to, I assume it was a psychiatrist to do the testing.
Mm.
What was it that finally you sort of thought, okay, it's time to get this addressed?
Well, I mean, I've always been, you know, in and out of the mental health world in terms of like psychiatrists, psychologists, counselors, you know, all that kind of stuff. And I hadn't been in a really long time. Like, I guess you'd call me like medically stable in terms of like medication. I just backtracking, when I was 13, I was diagnosed with depression, anxiety, and put on antidepressants.
Yeah.
Now I know that they were symptoms of untreated ADHD. But basically, when I got into, you know, I had kids, and when I had my daughter, you know, things were all right. Then I had my son, and it was just like I just couldn't like function, and I wasn't really aware of why. And I had about 2 or 3 like what I felt like I was going to die, just like a full blown panic attack, but it was absolutely out of nowhere. Like, I couldn't think of something that had happened. I was just driving down the road and felt like my throat was closing over. My heart was beating out my chest, and I was like, what the hell is wrong with me? You know, once that happens to you and then it happens again, you just are like scared of something that you just can't control. So
Yeah.
when that happened, I was like, okay, I've obviously got some like horrendous anxiety disorder, right? And so I need to go and, you know, get like the good stuff, you know? And that's what I thought. I was like, anxiety, right? Thankfully or luckily for me, when that happened, there hadn't been like this huge wave of ADHD diagnoses in New Zealand yet. It wasn't as kind of like talked about or well known. So it only took me, I think, maybe like 2 weeks to get into a psychiatrist.
Yeah,
You
okay.
know?
Whereas these days, I think,
Oh, yeah.
knowing what I know and from conversations I've had with my psychiatrist, I think it can take up to a year, can't it, to even see someone?
Yeah,
Mm.
but I like sometimes I get lucky in my life, but you know, that's what I thought I was going in there for. And he, you know, sent me all these questionnaires, and there was like the depression, the anxiety one. It's like, yep, done this before. And then suddenly there was like an ADHD one. And so this is a new psychiatrist. I hadn't seen him before. And I'm like, what a moron, you know, like, but I'm like, I'll fill it out. But I'm like, I don't know what this guy thinks he's on. Like, he hasn't even read my notes. You know, I'm anxious, and I have been since I was a kid.
Mm.
Didn't think much about it. And then had the Zoom. Gosh, it's actually quite a lot going back to that moment. But yeah, had the Zoom, and then it just like being hit in the face with it.
Yeah.
So I didn't go looking for a diagnosis. I didn't consider it. I just thought it was a joke, like I didn't think anything of it. I filled it out. But I look back now and I thankfully had gotten in front of the right professional who obviously had looked at my history and been like, this is undiagnosed ADHD, you know? So
Did you find during the testing and the initial conversations with him that things sort of you had these light bulb moments and things started making sense? Like when I've just for context, I've done the ADHD testing and I remember working through it, and some of the questions were like I didn't find relevant or connect with at all. But then some of them were like, oh, that's like a big light bulb moment. Like that actually would explain a lot
yeah,
of I guess for you, I'm asking, was the testing and diagnosis, did it calm you and make you understand yourself better, or was it quite a shock and made you more confused?
my life as I knew it was just like, my world was tipped upside down. My whole story, my whole narrative of like what I thought I was to be like this diagnosis that in my head was quite stigmatized as like naughty, loud boys, you know.
Yeah.
But then when he did explain it and was explaining how it manifests or how it manifests in women and kind of the whole, um, you know, like the workings of the brain and the overwhelm and how a lot of women get diagnosed after they become mothers because that's like they just hit the max load of what they can
Mm.
handle. So he explained it, but I just was like in tears. I was just sobbing. Like not because I was upset that I had it. It was more just like, oh my God, you know, to be told this and then be like, yeah, so we're gonna start you on some Ritalin and it might help you. And it was just this whole like I don't know, it just was life changing. It was just out the gate, yeah.
So just to step back, s- from your early teens, you started experiencing the anxiety and depression, and you were, I guess, treated and medicated for that throughout your teens, 20s, probably into your 30s, I
My
assume.
whole life.
Yeah. When you were at school, actually, and in those teenage years, is there things now, knowing what you know, that stick out as being, quite common or quite obvious that you were a little bit different, or that
Mhm.
maybe things teachers said to you and stuff like that?
Now that I know what it is, yeah, I just like I mean, people like us, we always can feel and know that we're different, but we just don't really know why. So I always just had this narrative of like, I am different and I am emotional and I'm sensitive and I'm stupid because I would be really, like, I could be really smart, but then it would just be things that if it was like an exam, I would like bomb out, right? But then I knew the stuff, but in the moment I couldn't articulate it or I couldn't communicate it. And so instead of me like thinking I'm distracted, it was like, oh my God, I'm just a moron, you know? But during school, when I look back, yeah, there are so many things. I actually went through my school reports not that long ago, right? Because I have them here and it's screaming girl ADHD, but no one really knew back then. It's just how it was. But like report after report, because I would just like either get 50% or like fail, right?
Mm.
And it's funny because I can look through periods and I was like, oh, that's when I like broke up with my boyfriend and I was really heartbroken. And then this is when like something else was happening and, you know, tied to like emotional regulation. So that
Yeah.
would be getting in the way of my work. But the comments that were there were like brutal. It was, I remember this one nearly word for word. And it was like, I do not understand how Selena did not pass this exam. I can only say that she has not put in enough of the work and she's not studied enough. And she cannot afford to ever do that if she wishes to be successful at anything.
So just as a side note on that, you're a lawyer, so you're obviously smart. Do you think back at school in particular, the issue wasn't that you couldn't do it, is that you didn't want to?
I think it was a history of unfulfilled potential
Mm.
and that was also another like theme throughout my schooling years. It's like potential. She's got so much potential. Potential. It was like it was in me, but I couldn't get there, you know? That was just always the theme. I think that schooling was just really hard for me, as it is for a lot of us. I fucking hated school. I hate school. I still hate school. It's the whole system of like sitting in a classroom for, 6 hours and having to learn things that are stupid or boring, and you don't even need them for later in life, you know?
Did you do better at the things you were, like,
Yeah.
deeply interested
Mhm.
in?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Course,
It's
yeah.
I heard again when I was researching for this, I read a lot about, it's an interest thing, and it's not a lack of focus, it's a lack of being able to direct your focus.
Yeah, it is. It's not, you don't have enough attention. It's like you actually have unregulated attention,
Yes.
like,
Yeah.
everywhere. And
Yeah.
it's not a choice at all. And that's the heartbreaking thing. It really isn't a choice.
And that's what would make school in particular, hard work, I'd
Yeah, well, it
imagine.
is hard when school, is kind of like they they kind of want you to be good at everything, or they want you to pass everything,
Mm.
and not everyone is going to be great at it, and things like maths and science and just like number stuff just killed me.
What did you enjoy out of interest, and what were you good at?
I loved like creative writing and like English and history, like anything
Yeah,
that was like
okay.
written word. I was really creative. I was a head reader, really good at reading, really good at like imagination and like just writing. Just yeah, that was what I was good at. Yeah.
And did you always wanna go into law?
No, no.
No? How did that come about?
Well, I've always wanted to be like a few things, as
Yeah,
we are, we
yeah,
have ideas. But when I went to uni, I wanted to be a psychologist. No, first of all, I was a criminologist, and then that's not a job. Then I wanted to be a psychologist, and then because that's a lot of us go into that field because it's almost like we want to understand ourselves.
yeah.
And then what killed me was the bloody data and the research and the statistics, and I just could not do it. And then I'm like, "Oh, what do I do now?" And I think it's just I have always wanted to, I guess, make people like proud, and I didn't know what to do. It's like, well, if you do law, you can kind of go and do anything with law, which I'm glad, because like once you have a law degree, like it's like you can really go into anything,
Opens a lot
and
of gateways.
it gives you
Mm,
credibility. And then once I got it, I was like, well, I actually want to like practice in it now. So, I've come all this way.
yeah.
Yeah, I think it's quite common for us to like change careers or change ideas quite a lot. And I can just do my other stuff, my passionate stuff, which does not produce money. But do you know what I
No,
mean?
no, I
You
know
know what I
exactly.
mean? Like,
I actually resonate with that quite deeply. I
sometimes
do
you've
get that.
just got to do the stuff
Yeah,
to like survive. But
yeah,
the
pay the
fun
bills.
stuff, like one day that would be really
Mm,
nice. But.
mm. And did you find studying when you were a bit older
Mm.
at law school easier than sort of focusing at school? Did things get better, or perhaps because you were more interested in law, it was a bit easier? I mean, you obviously passed.
Yeah, I did. I actually got honours in two of my degrees, because I
Mm,
like once I do something right, even if it's like I really don't like it, I just can't stop until I say that I've done it.
yeah,
I
okay.
like just go, even if I'm miserable, right? I'm like, I don't care. I have I just can't stop something until I like get the goal. That's something
Yeah,
about me.
yeah.
And then I like also I'm like, wow, fuck, I want to get honors. Like that just sounds legit. And so, but that's how I operate. And even though, law wasn't some of the law subjects weren't my favorite, I'm like, fuck yeah, I'm gonna get honors in law. Like that just
Mm,
sounds, flex. But that's just how I work. But it's good. It gives me motivation. Like no one else can motivate me to do it.
no.
It's just like no one I think people can look at me and be like, she can't do that. And that's
Does that
gives
make you
me,
want it more?
yeah,
Yeah,
every time,
yeah.
every time. So,
So I guess there's also some plus sides to it. If you look
oh,
at it
there
from that
is.
direction, giving you that drive and motivation that you don't need to find externally.
Oh yeah. But I think going back to the question of did I find it easier, I think with university it was just more flexible. So that's why I enjoyed it. And it was like the party scene. So I went to university in the Gold Coast.
Okay.
And that was fun. And
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah.
oh, what a life. But it was flexible, like you didn't want to go to a lecture, like you can stream it, or
Yep.
you could choose to go to that tutorial or like that one. You could kind of like make your day work for you. So I would never do like morning ones, because I'm not a morning person. Or it was just really flexible, for like not feeling it,
Do
That's what I liked
you
about it.
do you think that flexibility, if you hadn't had that flexibility, you would have gotten through it? As in if it was school hours or uni hours,
No. Oh,
without the
no, I would
online
have. No,
learning.
I would have because I wouldn't have given up, but I would have
Mm.
been highly miserable.
So
But yeah, I wouldn't
for
have
pe
enjoyed it as much, but I wouldn't have quit.
yeah, and I think that's a quite an important point that for people with or for neurodivergent people rather,
Mm,
having flexibility in
mm.
education and I think also in the workplace probably makes you a lot more productive, happy, calm, and focused, if you can sort of do it to some extent on your own terms.
It does because it's almost like we can't even control our brains sometimes, and it's really hard. I feel like we're either brilliant or we're just like crap sometimes, in terms of like what our output is. And that can be dependent on like sleep or food or hormones, or I don't know, your brain's just like crashing out today. And it's really hard. Like we're just like not consistent people. We
Yeah.
don't like come in and be average and consistent every day. It's like we will come in like a flash and a bang and be like brilliant, right? But no one can keep up that kind of inertia. So there's
Mm.
always going to be a crash, after a flash. And it's real cyclic. And that's what I've come to learn about it. And that's like obviously not what employers like to hear, but
Mm. But
it's
I
the
think it's
truth.
something that's becoming more and more common.
I hope so. I hope it gets more normalized because, there's nothing wrong. It's just we're in a society that the construct hasn't really been fit for us. That's all.
Mm. Mm. Well, I think, like, as a business owner, I would have no qualms hiring someone with ADHD and having a conversation with them about how they could work that to best, promote their strengths and their focus. Because
Exactly.
as long as it got the job done, and I actually believe since COVID, workplaces in general have gotten quite a bit more flexible.
They
Um,
have, haven't they? Yeah.
and there's still more steps for learning and education around neurodiversity and all that sort of stuff. The strengths that come with it, if you maximize that, or sorry, if you allocate the time and space to let that person really excel, I think that'd be such an asset to any company.
Definitely. It's like let them fly. Yeah.
Does your job as a lawyer offer you quite a bit of flexibility
Yeah.
in the way you work? Do you think that's why you
Yeah, it
still do
does.
it?
It does. And that's because it's through family.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, so early to mid 30s, you started or sorry, you had your children and then in your early to mid 30s things started getting a lot harder into the panic attacks and the more severe anxiety and just struggling with what at that time as far as you knew was the diagnosis you'd been given since you were a teenager, right?
Yeah.
And you got your diagnosis. What was life like after you'd sort of sat with that for a little bit? You obviously changed medications, I assume.
No, I just added one in.
Okay, and that was the Ritalin?
Yeah.
And did that help?
Oh my God. The first day I took Ritalin, I cried. It was like I felt like Bradley Cooper in Limitless, or I felt
Oh,
like
yes,
I
yep.
had been like I felt like I'd just put glasses on my brain and not realizing that I was seeing things fuzzy my whole life. It was just this like, holy shit, does everyone like live in the world like this? Is this how it's meant to feel like?
And was it a focus thing, or was it
Yeah,
a did it
it
calm
was.
the anxiety, or was it more j
Yeah, I describe myself as like more of a a brain fog person. Like I'm very foggy, and it kind of clears the fog, and like it just allowed me to like communicate and task switch. I'm still shit at prioritizing things, mind you, but in terms of like laser focus, getting things done and able to communicate, because the old me could never sit here and do this. I could never have been on TV, could never have had a podcast. My problem was like there was this real delay between like my brain and trying to speak. It was crazy, and now it's like it's all there. Like I was always smart, I just couldn't articulate it in time, and so I just used to be like really shy and really just felt stupid.
It sounds like it was quite loud in your head before.
Really loud.
Yeah, and then with that added medication, did it just allow you the time and space to actually take a breath and pick a task and do it, or have a thought and actually sit with it rather than them coming and going so quickly?
I think it just allowed me to like sift my way through the overwhelm better.
Yeah.
And get things done, and that affected, well, that had a correlation with my anxiety, and that it lowered my anxiety. And I didn't have those moments because that was overwhelm, not realizing it.
And do you still take Ritalin now? Is that something that you think you'll probably just stick with if it makes that much of a difference?
Yeah. I mean, I haven't really thought about not taking it. So, yeah.
At the time you were prescribed that, did you also do any other forms of therapy or work to sort of start addressing the ADHD, or was there?
No, because I was in the mindset of like, and this is like quite a very common, I guess, mindset of like the medical profession, is like, oh, like here's a pill, like, oh, you're depressed. Not like why, it's like, here's an antidepressant, like let's not work through why. And so I can admit it, I was that mindset. I'm like, give me all the pills, and so I'm like, no, I don't like why, I don't need therapy again. So no, like that was not even on my radar. And I mean, I even remember one of my family members saying to me like, oh, okay, so you're all good now, like you're fixed now, like you've got the right meds. And I'm like, yeah.
Good.
And that was the mindset,
So you at
yeah.
that time just thought, cure, done,
Yeah.
on with life.
Yeah. Yeah.
How would you explain ADHD to someone now that you have the space to sort of probably articulate it better and actually know what it is?
Yeah.
For you, and I guess you could ask 10 people this question with ADHD and get differing answers, but for you, you hear a lot about, oh, they're just hyper, or, oh, they can't get their shit together. What if someone says to you, describe what it's like in your head on a typical day, what does that look like?
Beautiful chaos. It's it's in my head, is I've realized now that it's not something that you like medicate out, or like, it's chaos, it's creativity, it's ideas, it's connection. I feel like we're really good at empathizing and getting on the level with people. We're really magnetic, sparkly people. It's having stupid F-ups, but it's also like learning to not let that crush your self-esteem. I mean, I know that I'm always going to be late, or
I think it was
I didn't even give you an excuse this
it
time.
was
I'm
about
like,
13 minutes.
yeah, I was
So
like,
it's not too bad.
he'll know by now.
Yeah,
Like, like I'm not even going to go there.
I was prepared for it.
Yeah. So I always will be,
Yeah.
and or I'm always going to forget something or not read something properly, and like that's just all a part of it. I think about like the most, amazing experiences or people that I meet, or I look at my friends and like all of them are kind of entrepreneurs or side hustles.
Yep.
They've got ideas. They're the ones that have the ideas, but they actually always go through with them. Like they're brave as well. They just don't care. They're like, I have to do this. And what I will say is no judgment. There's that whole like, we listen and we don't judge. Well, we don't listen and none of us judge
Mm. Mm.
because we've been judged our whole life. Like I can always tell another ADHD person, they're really empathetic and they
Mm.
don't judge.
How about in the role of a mother? Because that's something that, I mean, there must be a lot of other mothers out there that have been diagnosed as adults with ADHD.
Yeah.
How does it enter the role of being a mother? Because I'm guessing it, I mean, that's a hectic time in life,
Yeah.
through all the years, to be honest, all the early years up to teens. How did that affect you? Obviously, the majority of the time you've had with your kids was post-diagnosis. What does that look like on a day-to-day basis for you as a mother?
In terms of like struggles or
Yeah, like
yeah.
what do you think you struggle with that
Mm.
someone without ADHD wouldn't struggle with?
Probably things like being on top of like the washing or the lunchbox or replying to the in party invites, or getting the right bloody costume or uniform for a certain day, like I'm always getting that stuff wrong, just kind of forgetting things like, oh, mum, you forgot this, or like, oh, mum, you forgot this. That's probably what it looks like. But then on the flip side, it can also be like, oh my gosh, it is such a beautiful weekend. Why don't we just book the car ferry and drive over to Waiheke right now?
Mm.
And, get an Airbnb. It'll be so like last minute impulsive. And the kids are just like, because I'm adventurous and last minute like that. People say, what are you doing on the holidays? I'm like, I don't know. I literally live a day at a time and see how we're feeling. And, I think being young at heart
Yeah,
and
which is a
I'm,
huge strength for kids. That's
yeah,
amazing for kids. We
yeah,
spoke in our the other day about sort of the impulsiveness side of ADHD, which for a child could be super exciting.
it is. It is. It's like, because I don't like mundane and I don't like groundhog. And so it's excitement like that. And
Mm.
it's also being the immaturity and the childlike humor, which never goes away. And it's kind of, like, I feel like I can really get on with like kids better than adults sometimes, you know?
Yeah.
And it's
So you're
just
very close to your kids?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Like a
We
friend.
can just do like I get involved,
Yeah.
in the silliness.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm like, okay, really got to like mother now, you know. Yeah, I think that's what kind of stands out. And I feel like I can talk to my son's a bit young, but I can really level with kids. Like I can get on their level and
Mm.
I can connect with them easy, because I think we've got really good kind of like intuition and good skills like that. And so I feel like I can pick up if something's wrong, what's wrong, and I kind of can like high emotional intelligence, I think.
Mm.
Yeah.
And what you mentioned about, the little details about the getting them in the right uniform and the emails and making sure they're at the right things at the right time. You said something to me the other day along the lines of you find the easy stuff quite hard and the hard stuff quite easy. And does that relate to the little details and the admin of, emails from the school that don't get read properly, or don't you read them but it doesn't digest properly?
Yeah, it is. It's being you know, shit at easy and like great at hard, you know.
Mm,
That's what
mm.
it feels like. And I've just learned to you got to learn to live with it, because medication or not, like it bloody keeps happening. But thankfully I've got another ADHD mum friend, and actually we're actually quite dangerous together, because she'll be like, don't forget it's this day today. And I'm like, I don't think it is. And like, we're both wrong. And I'm like, we actually need like to outsource this to someone, because
Mm.
like we both can't read it properly. And she's got a PhD and she can't read the school emails properly. So I'm like, well, it's really not a measure of intelligence,
So she experiences the same struggles with the same things.
Yeah. Yeah.
What would you say to other mums? Like, what's the pep talks you give each other when you are, you 'cause I'd imagine, you send your kid to school on Mufti Day in uniform or something like that. It can't make you feel that great. What's the pep talk you would give another mother who's making those little mistakes, and that it's not a fault thing, it's just a it just happens. But what would you say to them to sort of pat them on the back and
I'd be
help
like,
them?
shit, girl, I did it yesterday.
Yeah. So
It's
just
kind of like that.
normalize it. Yeah. Yeah.
We're real like dark humor because, you know, when you live a life of like multiple fuckings that happen to you every single day, like you get this real resilience and this real dark humor about you.
Yeah.
You kind of have to.
That comes through in your social media
Yeah, yeah,
content.
and
Yeah.
that's kind of, I wouldn't like, I'm not here for toxic positivity. It'll be like,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, um, yeah, it more just like I relate to you, I see you,
Yeah.
you
So
know.
rather than a pat on the back, it's like giving them something that makes
Yeah,
them feel not
yeah,
alone
yeah. It's like
in the thing they've done wrong or the mistake they've made.
and that's exactly what my whole Instagram page started as. It used to be called "Is It Just Me" though, and it was really just like a way to be like, don't worry, it's not just you, you know, because that is really what I think alleviates shame.
Yep.
You know, not
Yep.
like don't be ashamed. It's like, oh, I've done the exact same thing, you
Yeah.
know.
Okay. Okay. Now, we spoke the other day about a sort of realization you had in sort of later years or more recent years
Mm.
about medication not being the be all and end all of helping you progress in life in sort of a meaningful way. And I wondered if you'd mind or would be happy to talk about sort of how you got to that realization and then what you found helped along with the medication.
Mm. So it was about a year down the track. I was on the highest doses of both antidepressants and Ritalin,
Mm.
and my life was just not great. And I'm like, you know, what the heck? And I think that's when I kind of realized, like, you know, I'm trying to, like, the whole mindset of like it's the medicine was just not really like showing in real life. That was probably the switch for me. It's like, okay, well, I just thought that this could help, but I'm like, why do I have shitty self-esteem? Why do I still hate myself? Why do I still feel like a moron? Why, you know, do I not feel happy with myself? And that's when I kind of realized, oh my God, it doesn't fix like my whole past and my whole like narrative of what I've told myself and what other people have told me. Like, you know, you're shy and you're sensitive and you're emotional, and this is what's good for you. This is what's not good for you. Just being like, who the fuck am I? You know, who do I want to be? Or who have like I suppressed to be because I've had to be a good girl and a good wife and a good woman and a good mum, the whole like good girl. And I'm like, I would have my moments when, you know, I would be like out or drinking, like the Selena came out, you know. And it was like I was the life of the party and I was just funny. And, you know, like I just felt, I like to go out for that reason because it was like, people be like, oh, it's drunk. But it's like, oh, I can be myself because people think it's the drink. I didn't know myself that I had just been suppressing and living to what other people wanted me to be.
When you were playing the life of the party and, you know, which I assume actually I know through my own experiences that can make you feel really included and, you know, before that point, and probably even going back to your childhood actually, did you feel like a bit of a black sheep or a bit different?
Oh, always.
And if so, do you think that sort of played into what you maybe realized in recent years, like, "Holy shit, I've been suppressing something," or, "There's some
Mm.
stuff there that I really haven't addressed that the medicine is probably masking a little bit, but it's never gonna get to the bottom of?"
No, because it's all about like, what do you think of yourself? And are you ashamed of yourself? And what causes the shame is a lot of like what you've lived through, right? Of like opportunities that you've missed and things that you've fucked up, or like people that you've lost because you can't communicate or you can't write back to people or you're late to things. Like we've just got like a trail of destruction, right? And you don't feel good about that and you know it. And so while like meds give you like a Cinderella effect, if you may, you know, like you can be productive, it's
Yep.
not forever, but it's really just like dealing with you're not a shameful, shitty, bad person, you know? It was really like unpacking that.
And was that quite a light bulb moment for you to realize that there was that stuff that needed looking at?
Yeah, it wasn't like a fun one, but yeah.
No, no, understandably. How
Because
did you go?
then you had to do the work, like
How did you do the work? That's my next
the
question.
work.
What was the work for you? What did that look like?
It's funny because I remember I left my marriage and it'd been like 2 weeks or something, and I'm speaking to my friend. I'm like, I've done so much work, and she's like, "Bitch, you haven't done any work."
Yeah.
And she was right. Like I hadn't even scratched the surface on my soul. Like I really hadn't. It was,
What was the book you bought at Woodkills the day
I
after you
didn't buy
got married?
one.
Okay, because I was gonna ask if it was a book on
Mm-mm.
marriages ending.
No, no, I didn't buy one because I was like so excited about the phone
Yeah.
call that ran
Side
out.
note, sorry.
Yeah.
Um, I'll rephrase it to make it simple. If you could pick the one real needle mover, the thing that really shifted that energy and shame and the stuff you'd been carrying your whole life, I guess the weight of it all, what would be one of the things that really sticks out that you did as a form of sort of internal work on yourself that helped?
It's hard because I wish I could say that there was like a light bulb moment or like there was just a shift, but it was honestly just consistent little things. It wasn't one big thing, but some of them was well, obviously finding being around the right people
Yeah.
and saying no. And I actually had a whole roster clear out. I mean, there was a period where I had maybe one or two friends that was really rough. I was alone on New Year's. It was rough, but I sat in
Mm,
it.
mm,
I could have like hit up people. I could have hit up like so many people, like acquaintances, but I'm like, they don't make me feel good. They're not really my people. And I realized I'd done that a lot because I didn't want to be alone. Because being alone is like confirmation that you're different, right?
mm.
So I realized that I'd always just like people please and bent over backwards so I wouldn't have to be alone, right? And but actually just being like, no, I'm gonna be alone and trust that it'll work out for me. And yeah, just not compromising and like sitting alone and being alone and going and doing things by yourself is like really fucking rough if you've
It
never
is,
done it
yeah.
before.
Yeah.
Like it is so sad. I mean, I just remember but again, I've got like this grit in me. I would go, I would go to like Takapuna Beach on the weekend, like afternoon, summer, and it would be so busy, right? And there'd be like friends, and I'm just like by myself, like walking. I used to like make myself do it. It'd be like Saturday night, and I'm like, nah, I'm gonna fucking just face this and get in my car and be like, oh, I'm such a loner and I feel so alone and I feel so sad. And then I'd go home and have a little cry. It was like literally just exposing myself and putting myself through this like uncomfortable moments, not being like, oh, I'm going to hit up so and so who I think is a two-faced biatch just because I don't want to be alone.
Yeah.
It was like, I'm only going to like allow anyone in that is for me. And now, and that's like a long process. It did work, so I trusted, but I did it like what I've learned is like when things like fall to pieces and they go to shit and you've got nothing around you, it has to because it has to make room for the right things to come into your life.
Do you think the brutal authenticity of the way you carry yourself now has attracted the right people into your life that actually connect with you?
Yeah, and I really love doing it because it's a really good way to repel the people who aren't meant for you.
Mm,
So from the start, I just will 100% be me. And it's good because people will really either really not like you or they'll love you. And I only want people that love me and I love them.
mm.
It's just like the worst space you can be in is if like you're just liked and you're okay. That's just not.
Do you care what people think of you? When you're making your content, and I know that's quite a hard question to some degree, everyone does, but your content is very there's no filter. And
Thank you. That's a compliment.
well, and that's what I mean.
Thanks.
Some people wouldn't take that as a compliment. So
No,
your sort of radical self-acceptance
radical. I like that too.
to to the point of actually sharing it very publicly
Mm.
has obviously helped you find your tribe, for lack of a better term. Do you ever sit back and think, oh, maybe that was too much, or maybe I shouldn't have said that? Or are you just of the opinion now I am who I am and I'm going to own it?
Yeah. The only thing that sometimes would go through my head is like, is this going to get me cancelled? Is this the one? You know?
Mm,
It's more about like the wokeness of the world, you know, like that kind of stuff. I don't like people that love me and that are my friend know me. And so they know what I'm doing and they know what I'm saying. So I don't actually worry about that. And again, that's having the right people around you. I know anything I put out, I know that the people like my tribe, they're not sitting there like screenshotting and sharing to other people like, oh my God, look at that. Like I know that they have my back
mm.
and they love me for me, you know, all parts of me. So it's not that. It's more just like more about like, oh, because you know, we are very, you know, not PC and we are very unfiltered.
That actually came through in the TVNZ doco. You can tell by the way, especially the females talked. And I'm not meaning this in any way. I mean this with absolute respect. It was like it was a more unfiltered dialogue,
Yeah.
and it was a more, you know, here's a thought out loud,
Yeah.
without something between it. And is
Yeah.
that common?
Yeah.
And do you value that in your friends now? Like, what do you, when you're attracting these people into your lives, what do you value now in them that you possibly didn't value in people before that
Truth.
shift? Yeah?
Truth. I only deal with truth. Yeah. I mean, sometimes you do have to kind of like mask to a certain degree and like, you know, like a professional setting or like, you know, you need to go to somewhere where it's like, okay, don't be a child, Selena. Like don't be a child in this setting. But they just have to be real and they just have to be truthful. And you'd be surprised at how many people aren't truthful in this world. I mean, I still get shocked actually on a daily basis. People say, like, oh, yeah, I value honesty. And then I think because of how I am, I'm like, that's a lie. You just lied now. And now I don't trust you, you know? Like a friend will say to me, like, hey, I don't want to, like, can we cancel today? I don't feel like it. And I'm like, thanks. Like, thank you. You
Mm,
know, I would
mm.
rather someone say that to me than
I agree.
either come along and like be like, because I'd feel the energy that they didn't want to be there, right?
Mm,
Or make up an excuse and it's like you've lied and that's annoyed me. What hurts me is when people try and hide the truth from me because that sends me into a spiral because usually it might be mundane, but it gets me thinking of like, why did you do that?
mm.
So yeah, honesty and just being who they are. Like my friends are very different from me in different ways. And if they are just being who they are and they're not hurting anyone, that makes them happy and that makes them happy people.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. And as adult single, I assume Selena,
Yes.
how is navigating life these days? You've got your medication dialed in, you're working on your self-acceptance and the authenticity, you're doing your you know, your normal work and your passion project of your awareness around ADHD.
Yeah.
How is life now? Are you more outgoing now?
Yeah.
You are?
Yeah. Life has been getting better and better and better. I'm still kind of going through the rubble of like, you know, separation and all that stuff. And like, that's just going to be time.
Yes.
But I know that one day I am going to like get to a place of like peace and like just safety and happiness. And I'll reach there.
Mm,
And that's what I strive for every day, whether it's like
mm.
working on myself or like correcting myself, like, you know, that moment that happened, you know, which we'll talk about. Just
Oh,
like,
yeah. Yeah, we will actually. I am actually gonna bring that up.
you know, just like,
Yeah.
okay, making note of that. And I'm just trying every day to be like, I know one day I'm going to just have like, I'm going to have my dream life where I'm going to be so fucking content and around everything that I've ever wanted and dreamed of. And that mainly is just about people and doing what I love. And I'll look back and be like, that was so worth just like blowing up my life, because that's how it felt. Yeah.
Mm. I hope this isn't too personal, but what is
I'm
what
unfiltered.
what is dating like with ADHD? If you're in that world, I'm interested because the the scattered well, and I understand the symptoms and that of it are probably quite a bit better these days, but do you find navigating dating quite hard?
Yeah. I mean, listen, I haven't like dated since because I knew that I had to be alone.
Yeah.
But like I actually don't need to go on like dating apps because I am an app. Like I feel like
They find
you know,
you.
they find me. No, it's good because it's just a lot of admin to like set
Yes.
those apps up. But I think what I will always struggle with is just games,
Yep.
and I don't play them.
Mhm.
And I don't know. I can't speak about this. I don't know if it's just like a man thing, but it just is like, oh yeah, like we were being honest, transparent, transactional, and then there's a game, and it's like I'm so too like healed, grown ass woman to be doing this kind of stuff. And so that's like, ugh, you
So
know.
communication's important to you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but and I mean, like people throw that around real
Mm.
easy. But it's like they don't actually. I've noticed that a lot of people actually don't live by it, or
Mm.
they'll say what they want, but they actually don't.
Yeah.
They'll kind of like act in a different way.
Yeah.
So I think for me, like, yeah, just honesty and realness is really maybe it's just hard in general in the world.
I think dating in general is quite hard these days. How does it make you feel when you feel like someone's playing games if you're not being truthful or not being their authentic self?
Well, it used to really hurt me. Like, and this is like I'm just tracking back to like before I was married. Like, God, there's lots of games when you're like, a girl in her 20s and
Mhm.
stuff. But I always used to take it real personally, as with everything else that was going on in my life. But I think now I've had so many like practice runs, especially over like the last few months. I just can like bounce back really quick and be like, not meant for me, not meant for me. It's almost I treat it like friends. It's like, if a friend was doing that kind of stuff to me, it's like they're not meant for me. They aren't. They've just
Mm.
shown me who they are, and that's fine.
Do you think that's come from really accepting who you are and what you deserve and what you're willing to put up with?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Because it's like I have come so far that I'm never going back to that version of myself again.
Mm.
I'm never allowing someone to put me down again or to make me feel less than what I am. I like it's just yeah, I'm so firm about that and I can spot it a mile away. And I don't know whether it's because guys can get intimidated or I don't know what it is because I don't know the
You're
truth, but
somewhat
it's
intimidating. I would
am I or are you just intimidated? You know? That's how I
Yeah,
frame it now. It's
yeah.
like, am I intimidating or are you just intimidated?
Mm. How do you deal with rejection? And this is leading into something else we're gonna discuss. And just for the people listening, we've actually already discussed talking about this, so I'm not putting you on the spot with something awkward. But how do you cope with rejection? And do you think that ADHD heightens your reaction to rejection?
Well, as you know, it does.
Mhm.
It does. And like, look, I'll own it. Like we are very heightened to rejection because we've lived a life of it, right? But I think now I'm in a space where when I feel it, I don't even get all silly in terms of like, oh my God, like let's just go out, girls' night. Like I'm just like, no, I'm so too woman to even do that. It's just like, okay, like thankfully I found this information out now. They're not meant for me. The right person would never do this to me.
Do you feel that way with all parts of life? Like, as in if you get rejected for a job at work or you get, you know, your kids tell you to go away or
Yeah, I do now. Like, when something happens, like, for example, couldn't sell this house that I'm in, which I
Oh,
really
yes.
wanted to because I wanted
Yep.
to move on, right? And people will be message and like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine." You know,
Mm.
my mindset is like life happens for you, not to you. And it's just about like how fast you can pick yourself up again and bounce back. Because I mean, everyone's got shit in life. Everyone will have shit. There'll be more shit, but it's like, how do you like alchemize it? How do you process it and how do you deal with it? And
Mm.
how does it make you stronger and better and keep going? You know, there'll be some reason that you won't see right now of
Mm.
why this has happened the way it has.
Mm.
So I just don't really dwell on things. I used to dwell a lot. I used to ruminate and dwell and be like, why? And like, yeah, like you can definitely have a moment like that, but just next day, like get on with it, you know?
What do you do now when those sort of stuck thoughts appear?
Yeah. I've got a couple of really good friends that I can call
Yep.
if it gets that bad that I feel like I need to talk to someone. Um, or I just kind of will make something like creative. Actually, it's when I would put out like maybe emotional or like deep thought content or a reel with like music, or I do like art at home, or I go for a walk, or I go for cold plunge saunas, like I did one this morning, like just trying to like
Cold
almost
plunges and
like shift your
saunas
mind. Hmm?
cold plunges and saunas have come up in almost every episode I've done as being such a good self-calming and healing tool.
I swear there's so many ADHD people in there.
In the sauna.
Yeah, we're all yapping
Yeah.
because I do the
Yeah.
because I do the communal ones because I like to have a bit of a like a yarn, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah. Yeah.
And it's just like you don't put it out, but you know, because I like to do the night ones as well.
Mm.
And it's like, why are you here? It's like, oh, yeah, I just like my brain is really busy. And I'm like, I see you, girl. I
So
know.
are you quite a night owl in general?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm quite a night person, but my brain sort of goes to sleep, but I can't sleep, if that makes sense. So I'm sort of that wired but tired, and
Yeah.
that
Wide and
that's
tired.
that's how
Yeah.
I've always been.
Same. It's
And
horrible.
I don't think that's specific to ADHD, but I am
No,
interested if that's something that you experience.
it is. It is. Not every ADHD person is like this. But
Yeah.
for me, I've, like, since I can remember, I've always had problems sleeping. And
Mm.
now I realize that that's when it's like my most productive time, unfortunately. And just not try and fight it. But I do try and keep track of like, okay, you do need to catch up on sleep here, or, you know, you've got this in the morning. So like just make an effort
Yeah.
to like,
Yeah.
you know, I'm aware, but it's amazing how people can just close their eyes and go to sleep.
Yeah, I've never understood that, and I've watched
I
people
just don't get it.
I've been, away hunting or camping, and I've seen people do it, and they lie down, cross their arms, and they're out, and it's like, if I had one superpower, it would be that. Like, that's what
Same.
I'd want.
Like, do they have nothing to think about?
Well, that's it, and that's yeah, I'd
Like, I just like, wow.
yeah, yeah. Now, just going back to the rejection thing, just to explain explain what happened as I experienced it firsthand because we've mentioned it. I 2 nights ago made a comment to you that I didn't want to mention certain medications in this episode, and I think I probably phrased it a bit poorly, but the when I woke up in the morning, the voice messages, the way you
There
had
was
taken it
three.
versus yeah, there was. The way I had intended it versus the way you took it. And full disclosure, the reason I bring this up is A, because I think rejection is a huge issue for a lot of people, regardless of whether they have ADHD. But for me, it's something I've struggled with my whole life. And it came down to, which I only learned in the, recent years, for me anyway, that deep sort of sensitivity rejection came
Mm,
from core beliefs about myself and stories I told myself. And
yeah.
when I listened to your messages, they almost sounded, it's like I had messaged you and told you, fuck off, I don't want you on my podcast anymore. And you sounded almost panicked, but then you immediately corrected yourself when I replied to you and said that's not how I meant it. And I thought it was
Well, there was a few out, but that, like, mind you, that was like an 8-hour break.
it was, yeah, it was. But I just thought it was actually brilliant that straight away you realized or you caught yourself, I guess, overthinking it or whatever. But I was just interested, what happened for you in that moment where you did feel rejected, and how you did sort of soothe yourself through that?
I think it was, like, quite good that when I immediately came back to you, I'm like, "I just want you to know that that was RSD," like, immediately off the bat. Like, I'm
Mm.
like,
What's RSD?
rejection sensitivity dysphoria.
Yeah.
So that's, like, immediately, and I actually have not said that to maybe anyone I've dealt with.
Mm.
Like, it was just like, like, 'cause I feel like I can be quite, like, very transparent. But do you know what it was for me? And because I went back and reflected, because 'cause I'm like, "How did this get past me?" You know? It was saying along the lines of, "I'm not judging, but," like, if someone says, like, I'm not here to judge, I'm not judging," it's kind of like I'm like a bull out the gate.
Yeah.
I think that's what the trigger is for me.
Yeah.
So I've made note of that. That's what it is.
Well, everyone
It's
has
like
their own triggers, right? And
it
it's not.
is. That's what it is. It's because of the judgment, right?
Mm.
And now like, learnt that that's what it was because, I haven't had an not an episode, but kind of like a lash out, to someone, especially someone I don't know. Like, that's been a long time because I thought I had it under control, you know?
It was an interesting message to wake up to. Mm. Mm.
Um,
Yeah, how did you catch yourself and cut? Because within a second, you actually came back to me and said, "Look, shit, sorry, Tim, this is what that was," and it was such a vulnerable message to say, "Look, this is something I really struggle with. This is the way I took it, and this is why I reacted like that." And that form of communication is very rare,
yeah,
and
yeah.
it's very rare for someone to put their hand up and say, "Oh crap, actually, you know what? Like, I took this the wrong way. I reacted like this, but this is why." It's the why part is often left out.
Yeah, I mean, that's me to a T, if I'm
Mm.
honest, and I know it's very rare and it's hard to, like, talk to other people that don't have that level of emotional intelligence or awareness, and, I just felt that you did, you know? That's how I am. I mean, that's goes back to the whole, like, I'm really just trying to, like, always work and, like, strive to be better and be like, I will always, like, if I'm aware, like, own that I've done something that
Yep.
I regret or I shouldn't have done.
Yep.
That's how I am. I can tell a story and if even if I'm in a bad light type thing.
Yep.
And it was almost like a thank you moment, like, "Thank you," because now, like, you can understand how it looks like, and you've
Mm.
just experienced it firsthand,
It
and
was
then
good
this
insight the day before the episode, that's for sure.
it
But
was good, and it's real,
it is real, and that was why I was looking forward to this episode, because I knew it wouldn't be anything we spoke about. I knew it wouldn't be sugar coated.
But how I self-soothed that night was, I think the last message that I'd sent was, "Okay, I'm gonna get some sleep on this, and I'm gonna come back because I'm getting a bit, like, confused." So, like, that was me kind of like, "I need to, like, think about this tomorrow."
Mm.
And then I listened to it again, I'm like, "No, no." I'm like, "So sure this is what he meant?" But then when if you being who you are and that message you came back, like, it was very easy to just go back instantly because, well, one, I wasn't as, like, fired up because I know that, like, I often sleep on things, right? That's kind of a way I do regulate it, and obviously, like, in the moment, I didn't think about that, but maybe because of the timing of organizing this, that's something I would usually do. I'd be like, I could draft something out right and be like, "I'm gonna see how I feel tomorrow." That's what I'd usually
Yep.
do. But,
Yep.
what is, like, your state in the next day, because
Mm.
sometimes it's like you haven't eaten or you haven't had enough water or you're just tired or, like, so many things could, or someone else has said the trigger word to you that day, you know?
Yep.
But
Yep.
it's like it was actually, really great awareness to remind myself that, like, "Oh, this is something I'm always gonna have to keep on top of."
In the documentary you're in, one of the psychiatrists, I think, actually made comment a couple of times about how sensitive. I don't think he was talking to you, he was talking to one of the other, woman that was on it, but they talked a bit about sensitivity to even perceived rejection, you know?
Yeah, that's what it is.
And
Yeah.
that's why I asked about the dating as well, because I can imagine that's quite a severe form. Well,
Yeah.
I feel like it is when you do get rejected, and I think a lot of people struggle with that, and you can
Yeah.
teach yourself to take it in a more constructive way.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. Like, I'm not denying that there's like a period of like feeling a bit
Mm,
yuck, right? But maybe
mm,
because I haven't actually gone out on a date, it's
yeah,
been like,
yeah,
so that I haven't actually experienced that. But and like I think that I've got like such a big heart. It's about like trying to like not open it up to the wrong person, which I used to do. But I think that like in general, we take heartbreak and rejection hard. Like we feel emotions really deeply and we always
mm,
will.
mm.
So I just know that being the way I am, it's like I know that I'll just always feel things very deeply. But maybe the minor rejections before you've even been on a date, they're like a bit easier to bounce back from. But I
Yeah,
think,
yeah. They don't
I
sting
think
as
like
much.
allowing yourself to have a really awesome pity party, like cry. And then, I mean, the way I've always dealt with anything is like, it makes me want to, I get quite competitive, even like with men. So it's like, I'm going to be better than you. And I'm going to like keep working on myself and do this and do this. And then, they do. It's like they almost didn't expect me to get back up after that rejection. And then it's this whole like trying to come back in. It's like, no, 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 no.
Mm.
So I think I take that as like almost like fuel to be like, I'm gonna like now level up more.
It all comes back to the self-acceptance, I think, doesn't it? And what you
Yeah.
said to me the other day about just being so comfortable with yourself that it's like to a ridiculous level almost.
Delusionally loving yourself.
Yeah.
Like delusional.
Mm,
That's I
mm.
think everyone I'm like I'm like all about anyone doing that, especially women. I feel like, men can like put up, like gym selfies and like no one says anything, right? And like bad.
Isn't it all people holding fish?
Oh yeah, fish. But like, the gym boys
Yeah.
and it's like no one is like, oh my God, where's your kids? Like you know what I mean? But it's like women aren't allowed to like delusionally love themselves. And I just think we should. So, that's what happens, just get to
So
that point.
would that be your message to other women who are even going through the process of being diagnosed or just feeling messy and
Yeah.
not understanding themselves? Is that sort of your big, I guess, high level piece of advice of that self-acceptance and finding out who you really are and starting to live in a way that adheres to those sort of values?
Yeah. I think it would be like, if you don't have a tribe, come and join my page and come and find a tribe on there and
Mm,
get around the right people and just accept that there's beauty in the chaos and that you're magnetic and you're just a fire and you're a
mm,
spark and not everyone's going to understand you. A lot of people are going to be jealous of you, but when you are around people that are the same, especially women, you realize just how incredible we are and how society has just told us for too long to tone it down and you're too much. We are too much. They're not enough.
mhm.
That's what I would say.
Where can people find you and what's next for well, the name of your, I guess, brand is Divergent AF,
Divergent
which
as fuck. Yeah.
yeah. And you're on Instagram and TikTok
Hmm.
and all those.
Yes. Yep. Instagram, TikTok,
Who are
Facebook,
the
but I'm
sort
not
of
good at. I'm
people
I'm so bad at using Facebook. I don't
yeah.
like it.
Who are the sort of people you would invite to come and follow along and join in on your sort of movement?
Anyone that is either late diagnosed, not diagnosed, anyone that is just about unfiltered, like dark humor, making fun of themselves,
Mm,
wants to just look at someone and feel like it's not just them and just to feel seen and heard, really,
mhm.
about being okay, about being a chaotic, brilliant mess, pretty much.
And what have you got planned or what's your sort of wild dreams for the future of Divergent AF? What would you hope to achieve as that passion project grows?
Yeah. well, I live day to day, but
Mm-hmm.
I just want to, I mean, I'm in a room now where I'm going to make this into my studio. I'm going to make a studio. I
Yep.
need help. I need technical help, but
Yep.
just kind of like leveling up like the quality really, and going out there and just meeting more like people with really interesting stories and having more people on. And I think just growing it in that sense. Yeah.
And your podcast mostly focuses on guests who also have ADHD and
Not all the time,
Yep.
autism or ADHD or like basically anything that would fall under neurodivergent,
Yep.
All they have to do is have an honest, interesting story, and it helps if they have a good sense of humor too, But
Yeah. Yeah.
just like just real people from any walk of life that just want to be authentic or want to get their story out to like relate to other people.
Well, Selena, thank you very much for your insights. I got one final question for you. If you could say one thing to that 13-year-old girl now, what would you tell her, knowing what you know now?
Gosh, she wouldn't listen to me.
Mm.
She wouldn't listen to me. But I would say, you've got a really interesting life ahead of you, girl.
That is the perfect place to finish this, I think. That is amazing. I like that.
Yeah.